In the quiet town of Willow Creek, there was a young man named Mark. Mark was the middle child in a family of three, sandwiched between his charismatic elder brother, Alex, and his adorable little sister, Emma. Despite the family's comfortable means, Mark's life was anything but a fairy tale. His parents, James and Linda, had always had their eyes set on their other two children, showering them with attention and opportunities that seemed to bypass Mark entirely, while Alex was groomed to take over their father's successful law firm and Emma's talent in music was nurtured with the best tutors and instruments money could buy. Mark was often left to fend for himself. He worked part-time jobs to pay for his college education, feeling the weight of being the unspoken burden. Yet, Mark did not allow bitterness to consume him. Instead, he channeled his energy into his studies, excelling in the field of software engineering. His dedication and intelligence earned him a full scholarship to a prestigious university 4 states away, offering him the escape he craved. The day Mark moved out, his parents and siblings watched with a mix of pride and indifference. He packed his belongings into his small car and set off without a backward glance, feeling a strange sense of liberation. His new life was a stark contrast to the one he left behind. He thrived in his independence, making friends and building a life that was truly his own. His hard work and talent did not go unnoticed. Soon, he was offered an incredibly high-paying job at a renowned tech company. Years passed, and Mark's success grew. He bought a beautiful house in a neighborhood that was the envy of his old town, and his life was filled with the material comforts he had never known growing up. Yet, there was something missing, a warmth that his wealth couldn't replace. That all changed when he met an enchanting actress named Lila. Her beauty was surpassed only by her kindness, and she saw the pain hidden behind Mark's stoic exterior. They fell in love and married, creating a bond that stood as a stark contrast to the superficial relationships he had with his family. Life continued to be sweet for Mark, but back in Willow Creek, the winds of fortune had shifted. Alex's once promising legal career was now marred by scandals, and their father's firm was on the brink of collapse. Meanwhile, Emma's music career had stalled, leaving her adrift and dependent on her parents' dwindling finances. James and Linda, once so proud and self-assured, now faced the bitter reality of their choices. The golden children they had invested so much in could not support the lifestyle they had grown accustomed to. One Sunday, Mark answered his doorbell to find his disheveled family standing on his doorstep. His heart sank as he saw the desperation in their eyes. They had come, hats in hand, to ask for his help. The irony was not lost on him. 5 years had passed since he had last spoken to them, and now they needed him more than ever. Lila, standing by his side, placed a gentle hand on his arm, reminding him of the love and support she had given him when he had none. James and Linda looked older, their faces etched with lines of worry and regret. Alex had lost his arrogant swagger, and Emma's eyes were red from crying. They spoke in hushed tones about their financial troubles and how they had nowhere else to turn. Mark listened, his emotions a whirlwind of anger and pity. He had worked so hard to build this life, to escape their clutches, and now they had the audacity to seek refuge in the very success they had never appreciated. He felt Lila's eyes on him, her gaze a silent question. Could he forgive them? Could he help them? Mark took a deep breath, his fists clenched at his sides. Why now? He asked, his voice tight. Where were you when I was working 3 jobs to pay for college? His parents exchanged a pained look, and Alex had the decency to look down. I don't owe you anything, Mark continued, his voice rising. You had your chance to be there for me, and you chose not to. Emma sniffled, her eyes pleading. Mark, please, she whispered. We're family. But Mark's anger was a force to be reckoned with, a volcano that had been dormant for too long. You were never my family, he said, his voice cold. You were just the people who shared my last name and took all the credit for my hard work. His words hung in the air, sharp as knives. Alex looked up, his eyes meeting Mark's for the first time that day. You're right, he said, his voice cracking. We didn't see how hard you worked. We took you for granted. There was a hint of genuine remorse in his voice, but Mark wasn't swayed. It's too little, too late, he said. You had your chances, and you squandered them. I won't be your safety net. Linda's eyes filled with tears. Mark, we know we weren't perfect parents. We didn't understand you then, but we do now. We're so proud of who you've become, she choked out. Mark felt a pang of sadness, remembering the few moments of kindness she had shown him in his youth. But it was not enough to heal the years of neglect. Pride doesn't pay the bills, Mark responded, his tone unyielding. I worked hard to build this life. I don't have to share it with people who only remember me when they need something. His words echoed in the silence, each syllable a declaration of his independence. James took a step forward, his expression a mix of defeat and hope. Son, we know we've made mistakes. We were blind to what you were going through. But we're family, and family sticks together. Mark's gaze remained steely, his arms folded across his chest. With a sigh, Lila stepped forward, her hand on Mark's shoulder. Let's sit down and talk, she suggested, her voice soothing. Maybe there's a way we can help without it feeling like a handout. Her empathy was palpable, a stark contrast to the tension in the air. Reluctantly, Mark nodded, leading them into the living room. As they sat down, he couldn't help but feel the weight of his past pressing down on him. The conversation was strained, filled with awkward pauses and forced pleasantries. His family's plight was undeniable, but the bitterness was still fresh in his heart. Alex spoke up, his voice earnest. Mark, we know we can't change the past, but we can start now. We're willing to work hard, to change. Give us a chance to make it right. Mark studied his brother's face, searching for the truth behind the words. Emma wiped her nose, looking up at Mark with tear-filled eyes. I miss you, she whispered. We all do. Can't we just be a family again? The raw emotion in her voice was like a punch to his gut, but Mark knew that emotions alone couldn't erase the years of neglect. He looked at Lila, who gave him a nod of understanding. It was time to lay it all out. I've moved on, Mark said, his voice firm. I have a wife who loves me, a career that fulfills me, and a life that's mine. I don't need you anymore. You had your chances to be there for me, and you chose not to. The room was heavy with the unspoken words of regret and longing. But we're still your family, Linda said, her voice trembling. And family is forever. Mark took a deep breath, his gaze unwavering. Fine, he said. But this isn't a handout. If you want my help, you'll have to earn it. He laid out a plan, detailing the conditions under which he would offer them support. It would be a loan, with strict terms and a clear repayment plan. The tension in the room slowly dissipated as they talked through the details. It was a start, a tentative bridge built over the chasm that had grown between them. But Mark knew that it was up to them to walk across it. As they left, he watched them from the doorway, feeling a mix of pity and hope. For the first time in his life, he was in control, and he wasn't going to let anyone take that away from him again. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of rebuilding trust. Mark kept his distance, doling out support with a firm hand. His family took the steps he had laid out, working tirelessly to rebuild their lives. Alex found a new career in real estate, and Emma started giving music lessons to local children. Slowly, the house in Willow Creek regained some of its former warmth. One day, a letter arrived in the mail, addressed to Mark. It was from his mother, a heartfelt apology for the years of neglect. Mark read it, feeling the weight of his anger lift slightly. He folded it carefully and placed it on his desk, a symbol of the progress they had made. Lila looked at him with a gentle smile. You're doing the right thing, she said. Mark nodded, knowing that she had been his rock through it all. He was still wary, but he knew that sometimes, the strongest bonds were those that had been broken and then carefully mended. The story of Mark and his family continued to unfold, a tapestry of forgiveness, growth, and the complexities of family ties. Each day was a new chapter in their lives, a chance to rewrite their story and find their place in the world together, even if it was on terms that had shifted with the passing of time.